Now, from WATN in high definition, it's Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Welcome to Local 24 This Week, the place to get the real story behind the big stories. I'm your host, Otis Sanford, in for Richard Ransom. Thanks for joining us. It was another busy week for politics, and there's a lot to talk about, so here are our topics for this morning. Fighting City Hall. Former Memphis Mayor Willie Herington made headlines with explosive claims that current city officials are conspiring to keep his name off the 2019 city election ballot. At the center of this dispute is a referendum on the November 6th ballot to increase term limits for the mayor and city council. We'll explore what happened and how it impacts next year's city election. Just say no. The pushback against the term limit referendum and two other ballot questions gained a surprising ally last week in Hollywood celebrity Jennifer Lawrence. She released a 30-second ad urging Memphians to vote no on all three ballot referendums. As early voting gets into full swing, how effective would that message be? And finally, dueling polls. Democrat Phil Bredesen seems to be making a late campaign surge in his race for the U.S. Senate against Republican Marsha Blackburn. A new Vanderbilt University poll shows Bredesen with a 1-point lead. This, as other recent polls, put Blackburn safely ahead. Where does this important Senate race really stand? Before we get to those topics, let me introduce our panelists today, an esteemed group, if I have to say so. John Ryder is the former chairman of the Shelby County Republican Party and former general counsel for the Republican National Committee. Stephen Reed is a Memphis political consultant and strategist. And Pastor Kenneth W. Whalum is a former school board member and pastor of New Olivet Missionary Baptist Church.
Worship Center, New Olivet Worship Center.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Good to see you all.
Good to be here.
Let's dive into this because we have a lot to talk about today. And Stephen, I'm going to start with you. Former Mayor Willie Herington made headlines, as I said last week, talking about an effort, which apparently was a mistake. He says it's a conspiracy to keep him off the ballot for 2019. I have a couple of sound bites from him and from Alan Wade, but before we do that, can you explain from your position what actually happened here?
Well, first off, to understand that the referendum itself was initiated by the city council, it was driven by the city council, and it was delivered from the city council to the Shelby County Election Commission. I think Herington was trying to make a claim that there was some mass conspiracy that went all the way up to the mayor's office, which would have meant the mayor and the Shelby County Election Commission and everybody was involved in this conspiracy to keep him off the ballot. Well, it just never went through, it never passed through the city administration. Okay. So it sounds like it was an error on the part of the city attorney that will have to get worked out later, but it's certainly not the conspiracy that he'd like to make it out to be.
And in the interest of full disclosure, you have done political work strategy for Mayor Jim Strickland. And apparently in this case, Alan Wade says he just left off some language that leaving off that language does would keep former Mayor Herington from being on the ballot. If we have those sound bites, let's hear from Dr. Herington and then from Alan Wade.
No conspiracy, no devious behavior among high-level governmental officials in the city government and the Shelby County Election Commission is going to deprive the citizens of the right to vote for me.
Okay, Ken, let me come to you. What do you make of Dr. Herington's claim here that this is a conspiracy to keep him off the ballot?
I don't think he's far from wrong. I personally think Dr. Herington should not run. I think he should stand down and support somebody else. However, I don't buy Alan's statement that it was a drafting error. Drafting error, my asterisk. Alan Wade is so fastidious as to be nauseatingly fastidious. That man is an attention to detail kind of guy. They did not just happen to get that thing tweaked. Like, it was on purpose. That's my opinion.
But what would be the motive of Alan Wade?
Exactly.
Right.
Too smart for themselves. It's just too smart for themselves. What they have done, inadvertently, I believe, is they have allowed Dr. Harrington to have the spotlight again. If they had just left it alone, he wouldn't be in the spotlight like he is now. Listen, I don't think Dr. Harrington enjoys the popularity among the electorate that he once did, which is proven by him running against Steve Cohen and getting mopped by Steve Cohen. So he doesn't have the support he once had. However, this kind of thing just tends to motivate people to go out and vote just for the hell of it, and that might happen.
John, I'm going to come to you, but if we have a sound from Alan Wade and his explanation, let's play that for our viewers.
This is the Willie Harrington ordinance to prevent him from being a candidate as mayor in 2019.
Okay, that's actually Dr. Harrington and not Alan Wade. Alan Wade said it was a drafting error, and it was strictly his fault, that Mayor Strickland had absolutely nothing to do with it. John, what do you weigh in on this?
Well, the Election Commission gets whatever it gets from the City Council in whatever form it gets it. And it has no authority, ability, or discretion to change the wording as it is delivered. The wording that was delivered from the City Council to the Election Commission does not have the December 31st, 2013 language in it. The body of the referendum does. So whoever sent that over left out the date language between the referendum and the ordinance setting the referendum and the order directing the Election Commission to put it on the ballot.
And in the interest of another disclosure, you are an attorney for the Election Commission.
Right.
And I'm not involved with any of them, so I'm just telling you, they did it on purpose.
All I can tell you is, the Election Commission just got the order from the City Council, and that's the language
and put it on the ballot.
That's what they have to do.
Well, Stephen, again, coming back to you, if Ken is right here that Alan Wade is so meticulous, how can people believe that this was an inadvertent error?
Well, I don't understand what his motivation would be. I mean, there's certainly no motivation from him to keep Harrington off the ballot that I could think of. I don't think the Strickland administration. I think they're ready to take on whichever candidate runs.
I agree with that.
And he's got high poll numbers in every demographic group. And there's just no effort to keep him off the ballot. So I guess we'll see, if people vote yes or no. But what's interesting is how will this affect people's vote? Will people who don't like Mayor Harrington now be inclined to vote yes to keep him off the ballot? That'll be the interesting fallout from this potentially.
Ken, we got 15 seconds left.
I'm going to say again, Alan Wade is among the most meticulous, fastidious attorneys I know. He did not leave December 2013 off by accident. It was on purpose, Otis.
Okay. Well, we'll see where this goes. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the referendums again, and a surprising ally for those who want you to vote no. You're watching Local 24 this week.
If you've been hurt in an accident, you shouldn't have to wait for so-called normal business hours to call a lawyer. There's nothing normal about having your life turned upside down. At Morgan & Morgan, our hours are 24/7 because justice never sleeps. Morgan & Morgan, for the people.
When it comes to Medicare, you shouldn't have to figure it out alone. With Cigna Health Spring, you won't have to. We'll help you find the Medicare Advantage plan that's right for you. Call 1-855-738-0422. There's no obligation. At Cigna Health Spring, we offer plans with no monthly premiums and no primary doctor copays, so you pay less. And we offer medical, prescription drugs, even dental, all in one plan. So you get everything you need to feel secure. Plus, once you enroll, our team will be there to guide you toward better health. Medicare annual enrollment is here. Call Cigna Health Spring today and let us help you find the Medicare Advantage plan that's right for you. There's no obligation. Call 1-855-738-0422. That's 1-855-738-0422. Cigna Health Spring. Together, all the way.
When you're in an accident, important evidence may be lost forever if you don't act fast, which is why we're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Don't wait. If you need us, we're here now. Justice never sleeps. Morgan & Morgan, forthepeople.com.
Making Strides Against Breast Cancer, a Local 24 Cares special presentation presented by West Cancer Center, featuring new advancements in technology, treatment, and reconstruction, plus survivor stories of hope, only on Local 24.
You're watching Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Welcome back to Local 24 This Week. I'm Otis Sanford in for Richard Ransom. You know, people were not focusing too much on these referendum questions until recently when Dr. Harrington had his press conference. But there was something else that happened last week when Hollywood actress Jennifer Lawrence weighed in with a 30-second spot telling Memphians to vote no. Let's play that for our viewers, and then I'll come back on the other side.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Lawrence. Memphis, you're about to get blindsided by your own government. Surprised? You shouldn't be. 10 years ago, voters approved laws that give the people more power over elections, hold politicians accountable, and create term limits. Politicians are sneakily trying to reverse those laws, so they put dishonest questions at the bottom of Memphis ballots. We should protect our elections by saying no to all of the questions. Tell the politicians they work for us.
Before I do, tell you a little something about Jennifer Lawrence. Jennifer Lawrence, 28 years old. She was born in Indian Hills, Kentucky, which is a suburb of Louisville. It's about 390 miles from Memphis. She now lives in Los Angeles, won an Oscar in 2014 as a Best Actress, and was listed in Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential People in the World in 2013. My question is, how much influence will she have with Memphis voters on this referendum question?
I think she'll have influence among the people that I tend to most identify with, and that would be the poorer, blacker, hipper people, the millennials, that kind of people. I call it the Taylor Swift bounce. I think that Memphians are just like most people. We have like a celebrity. We're enamored with celebrity. And we also in Memphis have a history of allowing people to come in from elsewhere to tell us what to do. I call that the carpetbagger effect. I think that is a very effective ad, though, for her. Conventional wisdom in my community says whenever a referendum comes up, you just vote no just because. Right. And I think she will help drive that kind of a reaction.
John, I'm coming to you. How do you see this?
Yeah, the default position on any referendum is no. And the No campaign has been very well organized, highly funded, lots of mailers, advertising. There has been no aggressive yes campaign, so it's hard to see how this passes. But that ad, I mean, you know, one of the things, there's a little bit of misstatement and disingenuousness about the ad. She says, you know, they're trying to trick you by putting the question on the bottom of the ballot. The referendum questions always come after the candidates. Right. That's under state law. Right. It's not a conspiracy by city government to make it hard to find it. No, that's where the questions are always found, is at the end of the ballot. So there's some...
But there is a little bit of sneakiness here in that for the term limit question, they say let's set term limits at 3, never mentioning that it's all now at 2. That seems to be a little disingenuous in my view.
It is, and the body of the referendum actually said, the body of the ordinance adopted by the city council actually said an ordinance to extend term limits from 2 to 3. But at some point, there's a responsibility of the voters to educate themselves, so it's a responsibility of the political campaign. That's what the purpose of the No campaign is to say, wait a minute, do you understand the effect of this is to extend term limits from 2 to 3? Right. And, you know, Dr. Harrington's out there saying, do you know that the effect of this may be to keep me off the ballot in 2019? Right. You know, the campaigns have a duty. That's what campaigns are for, is to educate voters.
Stephen, let me come to you. There's also two other referendum on there. One is to get rid of instant runoff voting. The other one is to do away with runoffs altogether. Talk about that as you talk about this term limit controversy.
Well, I want to come back to, they said the default is to vote no. I think the default is to vote no when there's a tax referendum. But we generally see a yes vote on referendums that people especially don't understand very well. We just saw it in the August ballot. I don't think anybody knew what that referendum was about. It had to do with pay raises and passed 65%. So I think the default, even how this passed in the first place, was people voting yes on something and not completely understanding what they were voting for. So I think the one thing that the Jennifer Lawrence spot does is it shines a spotlight on the referendums where people were not paying attention. And the more they pay attention, the more they're going to understand that this is not, in fact, a term limit referendum, but it's an additional term. So I do think it's effective in that way.
Okay. In the time we have left, let's switch just a little bit here to talk about early voting. We had a high number of turnout on the very first day, like 11,000 people, but there were still complaints about glitches. As a matter of fact, the headline in Daily Memphian on Friday was that glitches and suspicion is basically overshadowing what's going on here. Do you see that there's any significant problems with early voting and with the Election Commission on your part?
From my personal experience, I would say absolutely. But beyond that, again, Otis, I think this is a manifestation, again, of what I call the Taylor Swift bounce, the Taylor Swift bump. I think that the increase in numbers this year is largely due to people who are being motivated by people like Taylor Swift and by people like Jennifer Lawrence. Now, if the Democrats want to win, you know what needs to happen? Yo Gotti and Block Boy JB ought to endorse all the Democrats, Bredesen, Carl Dean, and you'll see the same bump among the black Democrats, young people, and we'll see. I think it's a lot closer when you get that kind of involvement by the culture.
We have less than a minute left, John. I know you can't talk a lot about the Election Commission.
No. I mean, whenever you've got a system this large and complex, there's going to be a certain amount of human error and a certain amount of mechanical difficulty in making the system work. But the system is working. The issues that came about, connectivity primarily on the opening of early voting, have been solved. They've been reconciled, and the system is working well. I've worked with the Election Commission for many decades, both under Republican and Democrat administrations, and when the Democrats controlled it, the Republicans were paranoid that the Democrats were using the power of the Election Commission to generate thousands of fraudulent votes. And when the Republicans are in control, the Democrats are paranoid that the Republicans are using it to suppress the vote.
Nature of the beast.
It's all paranoia and it's all fantasy.
Well, it ain't all paranoia. Come on, John. It's not paranoia if somebody's really following you.
What's really happening is you've got a lot of very good Memphis citizens trying to do a good job and deliver a fair election.
All right, we got to leave it there. And we'll come back and we'll talk about the U.S. Senate race from Tennessee here on Local 24 this week.
In Morgan & Morgan, we have a saying, justice never sleeps. That means when you need us, we're here anytime, including right now, this weekend.
If you're stuck with slow DSL or can't get cable, we've got great news. Super fast internet from Viasat is here. With Viasat Internet, there's no more choppy video streaming, and you can connect multiple devices with total confidence. Try that with DSL or cell phone internet. Now, upgrade to internet with 50 meg speeds. That's 10 times faster than typical DSL. And with unlimited data and reliable Wi-Fi, you'll never run out of things to do online. Call Viasat today at 1-888-586-3069 and get the home or business internet you've been waiting for. Get Viasat now and we'll guarantee your price for 2 full years. And if you call now, our plans start as low as $50 per month. Plus, you get free standard installation that's fast and easy. Go to getviasat.com or call 1-888-586-3069 to sign up today or visit your local Viasat retailer. Viasat, fast for all, is here.
Integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. These are the core values that were instilled in me as I served my country in the United States Air Force. These are the core values on which I built the Reeves Law Firm.
I was in a bad car accident and I needed a lawyer that could fight for me. The Reeves Law Firm did everything that they said that they would do.
I fought for our country and I'll fight for you. Call us immediately. Let us be your voice.
We do say Good Morning America?
What we do, we're gonna make it through. We are one, we are together.
It'll be okay. This year and for over 5 years, America's most watched morning show is.
You have no idea what a privilege it is to be able to say Good Morning to America every single morning.
You're watching Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Welcome back. You know, the U.S. Senate race in Tennessee is one that everybody's watching, both locally, regionally, and nationally. And we can't come to a consensus really on where the polls are here. The most recent poll was a Vanderbilt poll that came out just this past week. It actually has Bredesen leading 44 to 43, which is basically a dead heat. The interesting thing about that poll is that among women, Bredesen is leading 49% to 37%, and among men, Blackburn is leading 50% to 37%. John, I'm going to come to you first as our resident Republican operative here. All the other polls recent polls has Blackburn well ahead. Where do you see things right now as we talk on this Sunday morning?
I think it is a close race. I think Blackburn has the edge. There is a Reuters Ipsos poll that just came out on Friday, which showed Blackburn up by 3 points. That's consistent with the prior polls, except for the New York Times Siena poll, which was
12,
14. It was just kind of an outlier.
Yeah.
I think everybody accepts that. Here's the problem with the Vanderbilt poll. The Vanderbilt poll was a survey of registered voters, not of likely voters. And frankly, I'm going to say this as a proud graduate of Vanderbilt Law School, that is irresponsible polling. At this late in the campaign, not to have a screen for likely voters rather than registered voters is simply bad polling. And so I think you can throw the Vanderbilt poll in the trash can that is over there and look at the average of the other polls, which is down in the 4 or 5 range.
Stephen, where's your...
I tend to agree with John on that you do need to do some form of a screening when you start to see how likely someone is to vote. I think the New York Times a few weeks ago, I think that was a little off the charts. It was the only poll that showed more than a 10-point advantage in the race. So I think, you know, it's a tight race, and I think it's going to come down to turnout. And one of the things we've seen is, you know, we've seen spiked turnout in Knoxville and Chattanooga and Nashville and pretty high turnout in Memphis, and those are Democratic areas. Right. So I think that's going to play to Bredesen's favor. And I think this is very much a competitive race.
Okay. The fact that, aside from the Vanderbilt poll, which I think is a beautiful poll, aside from that, if you take the average of the polls that show a tight race, I think that's a victory for Bredesen in itself. In this reddest of red states, the fact that it is as close as it appears to be, even if Ms. Blackburn is ahead, I think that's a victory for Phil. And if we can get that Taylor Swift bounce, I think a lot of people will be surprised.
Well, what is the one factor as we head to less than 20 days from actually it's almost 16. Like 16. Yeah. What is the one factor that could turn things at this last minute? John, what do you think?
Well, I'm not sure there's any one factor, because neither candidate is going to do anything in the last 2 weeks to make a major error. I disagree with Ken. I don't think celebrity endorsements drive turnout. I think it's either motivation for the candidate or, more importantly, opposition to the other party. And I think the Kavanaugh hearings energized the Republican base in a way that they had not been prior to that time. And so long as the Democratic activists are out there churning in the media with all sorts of anger, that's going to keep the Republican base fired up.
You mean acting like Republicans?
I think acting like progressive activists. And
well, you say that, John, but then you have the president on Thursday night, and
the president
praising a congressman for body slamming a reporter. And now, come on now,
and
you can't have it both ways.
And the president has that anger in the Democratic base comes from opposition to the president, and what he does.
Well, where does his anger come from against reporters to say I like body slamming somebody
when a reporter
has been killed?
Every time he says that sort of thing, that continues to fuel the anger in the Democratic base.
Stephen, let me come to you.
That's correct. I mean, and that's a very good point. We've talked about this Taylor Swift bump. It's a Trump bump. I mean, people are going to vote as a referendum on President Trump, whether you like him or you don't like him. And in 2010, we saw a huge turnout of Republicans because Obama had become president. And we're seeing the midterms after a new president, President Trump, who's seen as very divisive to many people. So a lot of the bump is anger at the president, and they're going to show that by registering their vote.
Let me ask you a question directly. You asked what was the one thing that can make a difference. I think it's going to be a combination of the negative advertising that is being paid for by out-of-state concerns and the celebrity bump, the Taylor Swift bump. It might not drive turnout, but it does drive excitement and energy and passion, and you don't need much of a turnout to turn a close election. I think that's what it's going to be.
You disagree with that?
Yes. Yes, and the early voting so far, the big counties, Shelby County is actually lagging behind the other counties in terms of their percentage as against 2016. So, counties like one of the bigger percentage gains in turnout was Carroll County, Van Buren County, Crockett County. So I think
which is good for Marcia.
That is. Right. Davidson County was also very high, which is very good for Bredesen.
All right.
So it's going to be close.
It's going to be close, and we have to leave it there.
Yo, Gotti, call him.
We'll come back with some final thoughts in just a minute. Thank you.
He's a veteran journalist with over 43 years of experience. Former managing editor of the Commercial Appeal, chair of excellence at the University of Memphis, member of the Tennessee Journalism Hall of Fame, author of a book about how race changed Memphis politics, and local television political analyst and commentator. Otis Sanford, now with Richard Ransom and Katina Rankin. Get his point of view, weeknights on Local 24 News at 5.
The family vacation. The ones you don't just remember, but replay over and over again. When your heart skipped a beat, soul filled with melody, and eyes open to the wonders of the world. A trip that not only defines a summer, but defines a family. It's a reunion that can only be made in Tennessee. Start planning at tnvacation.com.
I'm Shelby County Mayor and Overton High School grad Lee Harris. Join me and Mayor Jim Strickland for the 18th Annual Race for Education and Youth Services Expo.
Help Local 24 Cares support Shelby County Schools November 3rd on the CBU campus.
Miracle Cure or modern-day snake oil, CBD oil is everywhere and now used to treat everything. But is there a downside to its use? Local 24's Caitlin Lockerbie takes you through the ABCs of CBD oil. Wednesday at 10.
That's our show for this week. Thank you to Ken, Stephen, and John, and thank you for joining us. And please join me every weeknight on Local 24 at 5 for my point of view. And Richard wants to hear from you about today's show, and you can send him an email. Thank you again for joining us.